All right, Joshua, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Hearing your arguments with people and your discussions with people, it was so inspiring because it's a complex, messy argument. The easiest one is fake fur versus real fur. Tell us your take on that.
So we have, on one hand, the fur industry making all of these claims and capitalizing on aesthetic irrationality. Real fur somehow being seen as natural.
Right.
Then we have faux fur. Plastic is a problem.
Yeah.
That's without a doubt. Plastic is a problem. But faux fur is not a single-use plastic. And it's also something that can be made with recycled plastics, recycled ocean plastics, bioplastics. I've touched fur that's made from coconut oil. I've touched fur that's made with corn oil. There are ways to make faux fur, and there are increasing innovations happening in this realm that we're going to see faux fur continue to improve and improve. Faux fur is something that you're not washing in your washing machine regularly. So when we hear about microfiber plastic pollution, it's not coming from faux fur. People aren't wearing their faux fur and tossing it in the laundry, where they might be wearing their spandex yoga pants and tossing those in the laundry. But the fur industry isn't going after yoga pants or athletic sneakers or toothbrush bristles or mattresses. They're going after faux fur because it is challenging a status symbol. It is challenging a source of power and a source of profits.
Right.
It's not about whether faux fur or real fur is more environmentally friendly. We know that faux fur is more environmentally friendly when we look at the studies. They compared what goes into making a real mink versus making something like a faux fur. Mm-hmm. And what they found was that making a real mink had higher environmental impacts in, I believe, 14 or 15 out of the 16 categories of environmental impacts. People don't realize that real fur has to be refrigerated in the summer, or otherwise it starts to decompose or get infested. So how do we end up with this thing that lasts a lifetime, as the fur industry claims? We have to get this idea completely out of our minds that fur is natural, or that contemporary production of fur has anything to do with what we see on indigenous people wearing fur.
When I talk to people about what you wear when you're vegan,
yeah,
and they ask about wool, and they say, well, we don't kill the sheep.
Right.
But
they do.
So can you just lay it out about the
yeah.
sheep and the wool?
Wool is one of those fabrics that I think is so dressed up in a very cozy sweater of marketing. We have been trained to imagine that there are some sheep living with lambs, and they're in a field and they're lazing about, and once in a while they go in and they get a friendly haircut and somebody knits a nice sweater. And it's understandable why people think that, because that's what is seen in marketing. That's what's seen in images. That is what maybe people see in their local communities if somebody has a small wool farm. But the industry at large, the industry at scale, where 99% of wool is coming from intensive wool farming. And this industry pays by volume. They don't pay by hour for the shearers. So there's an incentive to rush. And imagine that you are a shearer, and your job day in and day out is to shear as many sheep as you possibly can. And these are prey animals. They don't want to be pinned down. And what's been uncovered in over 100 undercover investigations into shearing facilities in the United States, in South America, in Australia, in New Zealand, is that sheep are abused horribly. They're kicked, they're punched, they're lacerated with the shears, they're sewn up right there if there's a big cut without any anesthetics. And anytime there is a massive amount of animal cruelty, then the question should be, how is this making the industry more money? So it isn't about being cruel necessarily, it's about maximizing profits. And often, maximizing profits results in very creative forms of cruelty.
Let's touch upon feathers for a second.
Yeah.
I know feathers is something that has taken a spike in terms of, like if you look at the Met Gala, this last year, it was a feather fest.
Total feather fest.
And when I talk to people about feathers being cruel, they're like, well, hang on, they don't know anything about feathers. Well, how's it made? And I'll send them a video and they'll go, oh, but I just thought feathers they just pick up the feathers that were dropped off on the ground.
There's really no way to scale feathers that have naturally fallen. Birds are plucked.
Yeah.
The feather industry today is very hidden. It is very much wrapped up in illegal markets and black markets. And it's also a product of factory farming when it comes to things like down and chicken feathers and the cheaper feathers, sometimes referred to as fake feathers, when they're not fake, they're just coming from poultry. So this is where we can also look at the impact that celebrity culture has on impacts on animals and the environment. Somebody posts a picture on Instagram wearing a feather, that has massive global impacts.
Mm-hmm. So then I imagine, you mentioned it's all hidden, I imagine that the birth of social media has helped your cause incredibly, because all of a sudden, you can't do anything without being called out immediately.
Yeah. We live in the age of transparency, but we also live in the age of fake news and false flags and people being able to make the claim that undercover videos and undercover investigations are staged and paid for. So we have the benefit of being able to say, here are 100 undercover investigations into wool operations. How can you possibly argue with these practices as being not just a bad apple? These are standard practices that are industry-wide. And then you have people like the fur industry being able to make the claim that, oh, this video that's circulating that everybody's freaking out about is actually a nonprofit organization paid someone to do this horrible thing to animals in order to get this result.
One of the other top 3 arguments is about leather and fake leather.
Yeah.
Would you say it's exactly the same argument with the fake fur and the real fur in terms of the chemicals that go in it, the livestock, the
There are some similarities. I think there are some parallels, but there's also some really important distinctions. One thing that I want to mention is the language that we use to describe these materials has to change, and it's important. If we continue to call things fake and faux and alternative, we're playing right into the hands of the animal industries. They want people to perceive these materials as being cheap and ugly and not durable and not high quality and coming from no place of heritage. So saying something's fake, I think, does a disservice. Some of the latest faux leathers outperform conventional leather environmentally, obviously.
Right.
They outperform them from a durability standpoint, from a weather resistance standpoint, from a longevity standpoint. We're talking about technology that is increasingly and at a high velocity getting better and better. The other thing about leather is there's a myth that leather is a byproduct, that we're just making use of waste, that look at how thrifty we're being. We're taking this thing that would be thrown in the garbage and we're turning it into something useful. Leather is the most economically important aspect of the cattle industries. Meat is not very profitable. Meat is subsidized. Meat is cheap. And without the sales of leather, a lot of these companies would go under. You hear throughout the industry, plastic, 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 we need to ban plastic. Sure, we need to ban plastic, but more importantly to do right now is to ban leather. Yeah. Leather has a far greater impact and it is worse. Mm-hmm. We know that. It's backed up by data. Let's do that one thing and then let's make plastics better. Let's make bioplastics. Yeah. Let's do all of these new innovative materials, which the technology exists, but the scale isn't there yet. These are going to be materials that allow designers to have more control over their process. So the promise of innovation and the promise of the creativity and the design potential is enough in itself to be excited about. But then you have that this is also a solution to some of these massive environmental problems. Yeah. Why isn't everyone clamoring within the fashion industry to make these things happen?
Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, then please remember to subscribe.